Hey guys, first regardsman here, and so I'll be talking about something a little bit different today, which is what are the best builds to level up with for every class in Space Marine 2, and what should you prioritize leveling first? Now, I'll say this up front that not every class in Space Marine 2 has an equivalent leveling experience. Classes like Assault simply have a harder time since perks like Zealous Blow and Commitment are so far down their perk tree, and perks like this are required to make things like a Wings of Flame build function at all. But that being said, every class still has a pretty decent leveling option. We'll be going through all of those today, starting off with the Tactical class. Now, Tactical actually has a pretty easy time leveling up in Space Marine 2 because his first row of perks are godlike. He has things like Heightened Vigor and also the best team perk in the entire game with Secure Stockpile that gives you equipment back for your entire team, and also stuff like Battle Focus to apply Auspex scans on parry and blocks. So really good options here, and on top of that, his weapons are very good for punching up into higher difficulties and also very transferable to other classes because things like the Pyroblaster, the burn damage of this weapon will scale up with difficulty regardless of the tier or variant you're using, so a standard issue version can still put out a ton of burn damage even on absolute. So if you're playing with your friends that are higher levels and you're just trying to punch up and get some extra XP for your other weapons, this is a really good option, and because of that, you will be able to have an easier time leveling your heavy bolt pistol, and your plasma pistol, and these two weapons in particular, they are on every single class in Space Marine 2, which means if you level them up on your tactical first, you have an easier time on every other class in the game, so that's a pretty good option for sure. Now, one other thing I want to mention here is that the Heroic Heavy Bolt Rifle, this is coming into patch 12 eventually. It's not in the official game just yet, but this is one of the only weapons that is transferable on both the Heavy and the Techmarine. Heavy predominantly only has like a Plasma, Multi-Melta, Pyrocan, Heavy Bolter that are only on him. This is the only weapon that is cross-class for him besides secondaries, which is why it's such a great option, and leveling up a heavy bolt rifle is very easy if you take a heroic option, because as long as you have the required accolades to purchase a heroic weapon, you can use them right off the bat, even if you only have access to like a standard issue version on the base versions. Just keep that in mind. And the benefit of that is that the stats of these are all relic tier, which means you just punch up immediately. So a really good option there as well. Now, as far as the melee weapons you should level up first on the tactical, I would probably just go for the chainsword immediately. This weapon is on Vanguard, it's on Assault, it's on Bulwark, it's on Sniper Heavy or Techmarine, but you do have guns to level up simultaneously for them. So it's kind of like a catch-all. Like once you level up your tactical, if you have a maxed out chainsword, if you have a maxed out heavy bolt rifle, if you have a maxed out heavy bolt pistol, you will have an easier time leveling every single other class, so I would prioritize things like this at first, or your Pyroblaster. Now for the perk tree, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just take Secure Stockpile first. This is the best team perk in the game currently, and other options like Battle Focus, these are very strong perks as well. As you go further down the tree, you have other options like Precise Calibration, Concentrate Fire, and some of these stronger perks, but like by the time you get these, you're gonna have a pretty easy time leveling in general because most of your guns will probably be leveled up. Now, the next class we're going to talk about here is the Assault. Assault does have the hardest time leveling up, in my opinion. The main issue here is that your first row of perks are just not that good. I would say the best option here is, funnily enough, not melee related at all, with the perk Auxiliary Arsenal. Secondary weapons damage increases by 20%. If you leveled up your heavy bolt pistol to max and you take an ammo reserve option on the heavy bolt pistol here like this and build it this way on top of this perk, you will have a lot of damage at your disposal for range. This will make your life a lot easier during the leveling experience until you get access to better perks like Overcharge, Armor Reinforcement, and stuff like Zealous Blow, of course, but until then, you are a little bit held back by your perk selection, so just keep that in mind. And as far as melee weapons are concerned for him, if you don't have a maxed out chainsword already, you could take this one. If you want to level up a weapon for the Techmarine class, you could start off on your Power Axe. The Power Axe on all variants is a very strong option. Fencing, balance, and block will all serve you very well, and overall, these weapons are some of the most potent in the entire game anyways, and very transferable, so just keep that in mind. It is unfortunate the Assault is set up in a way in its perk tree that a lot of his stronger builds, especially for newer players, don't come until much later in his perk tree, so he does take a bit to level. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, Assault does struggle a bit on his leveling experience. This is one of the reasons a lot of people don't like playing him at first, because until you get perks like Overcharge, Armor Reinforcement, Zealous Blow, Proven Efficiency, and stuff like that, he does feel a lot worse. So just stick with him. When you're playing the Assault, you have to keep in mind that he does get substantially more entertaining and more powerful with levels like all the other classes, but his best perks really are at the end, so don't feel too bad if you're struggling at the very beginning. As far as perk trees are concerned for his weapons, if you're building a fencing option, which I think a lot of newer players will, on the power axe, I would just set it up like this because you do get the most benefit out of the overall perk tree for things like gun strikes, power wave, and stuff like that. And you also get a bit of armor regen, which will help you survive a bit. But leveling up your power axe will also take some time. Now, the next class we'll be talking about is Vanguard. Now, Vanguard doesn't have too hard of a time leveling up, mainly because some of his best perks are right in the first row. Things like Zone of Impact and Tactical Prowess to gain AoE execute damage. This is his best combo in the entire game. You get it like right off the bat. And also, once you hit level 13, you will have group heals with unmatched heal, so really not too hard as long as you can make it past the initial matches. And also perks like Duelist, perks like Thrill of the Fight, perks like Restless Fortitude. These do make your life easier for new players, especially because it's just free damage reduction. And on top of that, his diving kick ability, this will scale up with difficulty, which means that you will have an easier time punching up with him than some other classes. And now, as far as his weapon selection is concerned, he does have some weapons that will overlap with Sniper and the Tactical. Things like the Instigator Carbine are also found on the Sniper class. Bolt Carbine and Melter Rifle are on TAC, and the Oculus Bolt Carbine are found on the Techmarine class. So if you want to level this one up to have an easier time on Techmarine later, you definitely could. All of these are pretty good options. Melter Rifle is probably the most noob friendly option in the game because it just has an instantaneous fire. It will stagger, get you CHP back, and also has healing perks and armor restore perks like right off the bat with some good ammo economy. So I do think this one would be like the overall best for brand new players. Now, as far as your secondary goes, heavy bolt pistol once again. Once you have this leveled up on one class, you're having an easier time on all classes. That also goes for Vanguard. And as far as his melee weapon selection is concerned, you could start off with like your combat knife if you really wanted to, but chainsaw and power axe are also present here. If you did level them up on previous classes, you can transfer that over to him. So it's really not too bad. And as far as perks you should prioritize, things like Adrenaline Rush at the very end, you're not going to have access to this healing perk for very long if you're prestiging this class. So I would probably just focus on Unmasked Heal first, and stuff like Consecutive Execution and Conviction, because these perks will just make your life much easier as a brand new player, because damage reduction for this perk is very strong, and this perk will just give you way more melt bombs that will save your game. So really not too bad. Maybe a bit of a learning curve because Zone of Impact and Tactical Prowess are a bit harder to use for newer players because you have to know the actual HP of the enemies and how the lock-on mechanic in Space Marine 2 works to properly use this. But overall, it's really not that awful. So hopefully that'll give you a better idea of how you want to level up your Vanguard. The next class we'll be talking about here is Bulwark. Now, Bulwark has a pretty damn easy time leveling up because number one, you get Conviction right off the bat. And this is one of the strongest damage reduction perks in the entire game, on top of the fact the Bulwark has a 30% increase starting HP, so you are incredibly tanky the moment you start playing this class and level up a single time. So really good option here to get you through your first column up until you gain access to the Intimidating Aura perk. Because once you have this one, a perfect time parry does area effect damage in a 5-meter radius, the cooldown is 5 seconds. You'll have an easier time punching up into higher difficulties because this perk does scale with difficulty. So the higher difficulty you're playing on, the more damage this does. And if you have a maxed out heavy bolt pistol from other classes you've been leveling up, you will be able to one combo parry, gun strike any Majoris in the game with this perk active on absolute. So really easy for that. And once you go into perks like Steel Within, you're just going to be super tanky and super damaging, even if your actual weapons suck. So a really good option. And you won't even need things like Invigorating Icon potentially, because as long as you just take a fencing weapon with these two perks here and focus Restoration for armor restore for your entire team, you're probably going to have a fairly easy time, especially if you're not punching up too high into like ridiculous difficulties. So really good options all around. Now, as far as secondaries go, you do have access to the heavy bolt pistol, plasma pistol, and Volkite like the other classes do. But, really just stick with heavy bolt pistol for the most part because the gun strikes on this hit like a truck. The ammo economy is pretty strong, the ammo reserve option. And I assume by the time you're leveling up most of these classes, you will either be leveling up this weapon or it will be maxed out already. Now, as far as your melee options are concerned, I would probably stay away from the Thunder Hammer for now because you do want that shield. That shield does make your life way easier because if you do take a Thunder Hammer, you will lose access to your War Gear, and your War Gear is the shield here, and the shield will block 100% of incoming range fire while you are blocking. So incredibly powerful option and really good for new players. So I do think you should probably keep this for the most part, and I would just level up my power axe, my power sword, or my chainsword if you haven't done so already. But, that is up to you. The next class here is the sniper class. Now, sniper only has access to one melee weapon with the combat knife, so if you are trying to prioritize a sniper, I would play knife on Vanguard or TAC if you've not done so already. Having a maxed out knife will make your life way easier on the sniper class in general. Same thing with a heavy bolt pistol and a bolt carbine. This gun is also present on the tactical. Same thing with the stalker bolt rifle and the indicators. You want to level these up first. You definitely can do that, and then going on to the sniper will be a lot easier in the long run. Though I will say a lot of players will probably want to level up their bolt sniper or last fusel because you're a sniper. I assume you probably want to play a sniper in the first place if you're going to play a sniper class. So if you want to take these guns and then level them up with your relic tiers on the heavy bolt pistol and combat knife, you can definitely do that. As far as the perk tree for this guy is concerned, I ain't gonna lie to you guys. The sniper's first row is pretty shit for leveling. Like, his leveling experience is not that good until you have access to things like squad renewal and renewal for getting back your camo cloak charge on headshot kills. You will be severely limited in your cloaking capabilities, and the best perk in this whole row here is, of course, purification. Manually activating camo cloak removes negative stats effects and restores all of your contested health. This perk will kind of carry your entire leveling experience. Once you have access to this perk, your entire life will be easier, even if you don't have damage reduction perks in the prestige perk tree like Conviction yet. And overall, it is by far the best perk in the first row. Even though things like evasion, persistence, and the perk here marksmanship aren't terrible, you just don't really pop off on this class until you have access to stuff like targeted shot, the perk tactical ambush for melee damage on camo cloak and range damage on camo cloak, and then the squad renewal and renewal perks, because these really are like the two enabling perks. As long as you have one of these, your entire class runs significantly better, but until then, you are a little held back, so just keep that in mind. It might suck for a bit, but it definitely gets easier over time, and that's definitely true for this class and Assault especially. Now, this brings us to the Heavy class. The Heavy class is a bit unique in that the majority of his weapons are exclusive to him, but luckily for him, there are a lot of heroic variants already on this guy. He has a heroic heavy bolter, he has a heroic heavy plasma, so leveling up these guns is far easier than it used to be, because the big problem with weapons like this in Space Marine 2 is pushing up into higher difficulties with a lower tier range weapon just kind of sucks. Like, a lot of their damage breakpoints just are not there until you have relic tier components and stuff like that. So he is definitely feeling a bit limited in that regard. But if you're trying to level up the heavy in conjunction with other classes, I would say focus on the heavy bolt rifle heroic variant that's coming out in patch 12, because this one is present on TAC and the Techmarine, like I mentioned before, so you're going to be having a bit of a catch-all there. And I assume if you're leveling up your character, you probably don't have like an endless supply of accolades yet. So if you really want to invest in just the heavy class, you could pick up the heroic heavy bolter and the heroic heavy plasma. These are really good guns. The heroic heavy bolter especially is the best variant of the heavy bolter in the entire game, but you will be losing out on some of those accolades points, so just keep that in mind. Now, the Pyre Cannon, like the Pyre Blaster, does have a scaling burn damage with difficulty, so a really good option here, and one of the easiest to level up and punch up into higher difficulties with, because that burn damage will be good no matter what, unlike the Heavy Bolter, Plasma, and Multi-Melta. But just keep that in mind that the heroic variants, they are going to kind of carry your leveling experience of this guy if you're trying to go as fast as possible. Now, secondary options also include heavy bolt pistol, plasma, inferno, and bolt pistol. We already talked about these a lot already, so these ones are pretty good options as always, and the heroic heavy bolt pistol and heavy bolt pistol especially are quite strong. Now, for the perk tree, his perk selection is okay off the bat. Restoration is a very strong perk, probably the best perk in this first column, besides things like Encompassing Aegis and stuff like Adamant Will. You do get health damage reduction, you do get range damage reduction, and you do get some damage bonuses here. It's really not too bad. I would say the major perk you want to rush for here is Fortitude, because once you have a health increase of 30% on this class, you are substantially tankier, and if you are prestiging your class for the first time, I would also rush Conviction, because Conviction is a very powerful perk in Space Marine 2, and I believe you can get it right off the bat. Yes, you can. So Conviction is a very strong option, and I would probably pick this up first. It'll make your entire leveling experience far easier, and then I would go for Auxiliary Reload. I'll make a video on Prestige perks at some point here for like an update guide, but for now, on Heavy especially, Conviction and Auxiliary Reload, these are really good options. Just keep that in mind. That's pretty much all there is for the Heavy class. His perk tree is actually, funnily enough, quite limited because your best options are like right off the bat, and then you're kind of just like picking up some extra stuff like consecutive execution, maybe power regulator, maybe overwhelming power and brute force like up your damage. But as far as like the base function of your class is concerned, it's really not too bad. He's in a pretty unique spot in that his perk tree kind of needs to rework, but overall it's pretty powerful. It's just a bit limited, and that's really all there is for this class. And now this brings us to the final class we'll be talking about today, which is the brand new Techmarine. Now, Techmarine's leveling experience is kind of dog shit because your perk tree is just not set up in a way that any of your best options are around until the very end, very similar to Assault. Things like your equipment recharge are not here until the very end. Things like your burn effect on your servo gun are not until the very end, and your best team perk is also at the bottom. But what you do get is your best melee perk at like level 3 or so with Arc Cleave. Damage from charged melee attacks increases by 25%. This perk is really damn good. This is just the overcharge perk, but like immediately in your perk tree, and because of that, weapons like the Omniscient Axe that I assume a lot of people want to use are quite strong, but the Power Axe especially is an incredibly potent option. The balance version, block version, fencing version, whatever you want to take, they are all pretty strong, but balance especially in patch 12, this one gets a base damage increase, and you can just straight up one combo Majoris right off the bat with this class if you have a max level Power Axe, because basically the servo gun lets you gun strike immediately in the middle of your power wave without any animation. It's like a big class ability of the Techmarine, and you'll be able to one combo a Majoris off of a single overcharge with your Arc Cleave into your power wave, into a parry gun strike on top of your overhead strike. Hopefully that makes sense, but really, as far as the Power Axe is concerned for this guy, I would just build pure melee damage like this. I assume by the time you actually level up your Techmarine, your Power Axe will probably be close to maxed out. It really should be, in my opinion, because I wouldn't level up Techmarine until much later of all the other options, mainly because he needs some help. He's probably the weakest class in the entire game at the moment, so having some stronger options for him in his weapon selection right off the bat will help your leveling experience with him especially. Now, the Heroic Heavy Bolt Rifle is also here that I mentioned earlier, but he also shares things with the Bolt Rifle, Auto Bolt Rifle, Oculus Bolt Carbine, and the Plasma Incinerator. This weapon kind of sucks on him, so I really would stick like the Heavy Bolt Rifle or Oculus. These are the strongest options on him currently, in my opinion, and leveling this one up on the Vanguard is quite easy, and also leveling up the Heavy Bolt Rifle on your Tactical or just buying the Heroic version is also quite easy, and they're both quite strong for him, so just keep that in mind. As far as secondary options go for him, he has access to pretty much all of them: Bolt Pistol, Heavy Bolt Pistol, Plasma Pistol, Inferno Pistol, or Neo Volkite. You can pick your poison on this one. Obviously, Heavy Bolt Pistol is probably one you will have maxed out by the time you level this guy, or, you know, level 2 classes or so anyways, so pretty easy solution to just having a good secondary gunstrike option. Though on the Techmarine in particular, your secondary option does not affect your gunstrike damage at all, because your servo gun has separate gunstrike damage from your secondary unless it is currently in use, in which case it will then use your secondary with the actual animation. So that's like a little bit of a you know, a little bit of a technical limitation on the Techmarine, hilariously enough. But that's pretty much all I have to say about this guy. As far as prestige perks go, just take chained headshots first. This is like the acuity perk on Tactical for just more headshot damage. This guy is all about just being able to shoot people in the face, and the biggest thing that's going to carry you in the early game for this guy is really going to be your Tarantula Sentry Guns, because your starting perk here is that you can detect and activate Tarantula Sentry Guns. They will attack nearby enemies until they run out of ammo or are destroyed. These things are quite powerful on all difficulties, so this will carry you in the early game especially. And you will also get buffs around them thanks to the fact that your first team perk is a reinforced position that will make you take less damage and deal more damage all within 15 meters of an active Tarantula Sentry Gun. So I would definitely play around these on top of your melee damage and overall AoE capabilities, things like your Heavy Bolt Rifle Grenade Launcher. But besides that, this guy does kind of struggle in the leveling experience. Your servo gun itself is not very strong at the moment until you have fire perks. Saber Interactive did state they don't intend to have a major perk rework for this guy right off the bat, so I imagine most of his issues, at least in his perk tree, are probably going to be present on launch. So I would probably just try to prioritize stuff like armor restoration, equipment regen if you can, but to be honest, most of his power is going to come from weapons and burn perks later in your tree, which are just not accessible right off the bat. So he does struggle a bit when it comes to leveling, but he's not like, you know, useless in higher difficulties. It's just that his best perks are at the bottom, and some classes are are just like that in Space Marine 2. So those were some general suggestions on leveling builds and the overall experience, or how I feel about it for some of these classes in the game. Though I do want to mention before we sign off here that you can level up whatever you want in Space Marine 2. Do not feel railroaded into like one optimal path. There is no like one single perfect way to level up every class in the game. You are just going to be grinding XP in Space Marine 2 because that is just how the game is designed. Some things might make it go a little bit more easily, but if you want to play one class over another and it's not like the perfect class to level up first, it really does not matter, guys. Play the game how you enjoy it. Play whatever you want first, because you're going to be playing for a long time, I assume, either way, if you're invested in Warhammer 40k or a horde shooter like this. But that is pretty much all I have to say in this one, guys. Let me know what class you've been leveling up, or which ones you leveled first, and which leveling experience you think is the best or worst in the comments section below. And if you want to find me live to ask me questions about the game or just come hang out, you can find me here on YouTube or on Twitch with a link in the video description alongside a link to my community Discord. And as always, thank you for watching, take it easy, bye.